doing push-ups. I've been doing sit-ups. I've been doing chin-ups. I've been doing pull-ups. I threw up once, but I'm okay now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Ysn Power Hour for this Wednesday, the 18th of May. My name is DJ Yoakley, and we've got a great show for you today. Big topic of conversation is what is with the athletic scholarships and what's the hype around it? What are some of the myths? What are some of the realities? Why are they so imperative? And why is it so imperative that your son or daughter or you as a student athlete are striving to be D1 and not D2, D3, NIA, JUCO, whatever it may be? What is the golden brass ring? I guess the golden ring. Or is it golden ring, brass, whatever ring it is? Why is it so important to grab onto it at the Division I level? Is it simply for the bragging rights, or is there something to it that I'm missing? Because I got to be honest, even though all of us try and strive to be a Division I athlete, why are we turning our heads and turning our noses to all those other opportunities? I want to know. I want to hear from you. Why is Division I so important? We're going to talk about some of the scholarships, the amount of scholarships that these teams are allowed to give out, and we are going to break it all down, hopefully for you today, on the Ysn Power Hour. So before we do that, let's get started with the show as we always do. It's time for On This Day in Sports History. Let's go. This day in sports history. Almost got it. In 2004, the Arizona Diamondbacks' Randy Johnson becomes the 16th pitcher to throw a perfect game. They won 2-0 against Atlanta. For most of us, even though Randy Johnson throws that perfect game, the majority of us remember Randy Johnson, the big unit, if you will, for knocking that bird out. That bird swooped down. I think it was spring training still. Bird swoops down. Randy Johnson blows it up. Like that bird had no chance, just eviscerated with a Randy Johnson fastball. That's what I will remember Randy Johnson for. Not necessarily on this day in sports history, throwing a perfect game, but certainly for sending that bird into oblivion. PETA, leave us alone. All right, let's get right down to it. Let's talk about the scholarships, and let's talk about what essentially, how do I even phrase this? What you want to know, or maybe what you don't know about scholarships. Let's start out with the good. So during 2019-2020, and this is scholarshipstats.com. Let's cite our source. Let's do what our teachers told us to do. Scholarshipstats.com. In 19 and 20, that calendar year, athletics from the NCAA Division I level, there's 357 schools. There's 90,241 male athletes, 74,986 female athletes. The average male scholarship was $18,013. The average female scholarship was $18,722, roughly $700 more than the males. The value of those scholarships were $2.76 billion. $2.76 billion for NCAA Division I scholarships across the board. Now, I mentioned that the males were getting less than the females, and that's probably because there were more males, so less money. If you think about it, it has to equal out. Excuse me, in scholarships. So there's not as much money to give if you have more athletes, and obviously we're going to talk about that. Football is the main, and I think everybody understands that and knows that. But when you look at these scholarships, the value of the scholarship across all NCAA Division I was $2.76 billion just for that calendar year. In Division II, there's only 303 schools as opposed to 357 Division I schools. There's 65,000 plus male athletes, 46,000 plus female athletes. Average male scholarship is at $6,500 roughly. Average female scholarship, just over $8,000. Obviously, again, the differential between the amount of male athletes and the amount of female athletes represents how much you can give per scholarship on an average basis. $752 million in scholarships provided at the NCAA Division II level. And then there's Division III. Has the second most schools, only to the NJCAA. Is that JUCO? Yeah, it's junior college. National Junior College Athletic Association. Okay. In those 445 schools, there are 106,843 male athletes, 76,400 female athletes. Now remember, you cannot be awarded an athletic scholarship at the Division III level. However, your athletics will help you build a package for you through your academics and things of that nature. Now, I'm not going to get there's a lot. Everybody knows that there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat when it comes to utilizing scholarships and grants and things of that nature. Division III has become an absolute they're like the numbers guru, right? You see those numbers. I know it's Rain Man where the numbers are going through. It's amazing to see the numbers and how they funnel through these people's brains, and they're able to come up with these packages based on financial aid, your FAFSA, your grades, your just everything. They put everything together. If they can find stuff for a guy like me, they'll be able to find a ton of stuff for a guy or girl like you or your son or daughter. Why I'm saying Division III, and we're talking about scholarships, and they should be disqualified, is that most people push, kind of like your Thanksgiving dinner, most people push the turkey to the side because you're not really there for the turkey, right? You're there for the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the stuffing, the corn, the cranberry sauce. I'm a cranberry sauce guy. You're there for all the other stuff. The turkey's just kind of there. You know what's going to be there. What people don't realize is there are so many opportunities, especially here locally, so many opportunities just to go to college and play sports or get a degree or whatever. But they're not exhausting all their options. Families are not exhausting all their options. They're looking at a Bethany, West Virginia, and they're saying, whoa. We are not going to West Virginia. And they act like it's 17 hours away. Folks, Bethany, West Virginia isn't that far away. In some cases, it's closer than most major schools. And by the way, there's kids that we have in this area that are going to schools like Bethany because they want kids from out of state coming in. Now, do they charge higher out-of-state tuition than in-state tuition? Possibly, maybe. But again, there's packages that can offset that. There's grants and scholarships that aren't necessarily for athletics that they will help you find and they will bring to you. We've become so consumed so absolutely consumed with if our kid or we as student athletes don't go in Division One, we're an absolute and utter failure. And I'm here to tell you that is the furthest thing from the truth. I am proud of everybody that goes D1. Don't get me wrong. This is not a D1 witch hunt. But I will also tell you that there are opportunities that lie lower than D1 that can make you come out in the long term or even in the short term better than you think you'd ever would. Just because your son or daughter does not go D1 to play sports does not mean that it's not something to celebrate. We talk about it all the time. Not every 3% of the athletes that you see here on YSN will go on and play sports. 3%. And that's a national average as well. That's from kids that play sports in high school that go to play sports in college. I take that back. 3% go and play D1. 7% total go and play division whatever, play at the college level. So 93% of kids are not going to go play college anything. They're just going to go and be students, which that is absolutely fine. My argument is now that graduation parties are coming around, right? There's the three major questions that are always asked, especially in this area. What sport does your son or daughter play? What position do they play in it? And where are they going to school to play? Those are the three major questions in this area. And the problem is we get so caught up in playing keep up with the Joneses that we can't be happy for our kid or let our kid or let ourselves go where our best fit is. We're so competitive that even though we might not play for 3 years and we may never sniff that field or that court or that whatever that may be, the playing surface, we have to do it to impress our friends. We have to do it to impress our parents. We have to do it to impress our parents' friends. Guys, girls, listen. There is nothing wrong with going to a school that fits you perfectly. There's nothing wrong with going to a school where they're not going to give you necessarily a Division I scholarship, which, by the way, we're going to go over here in a little bit, isn't quite as much as you think. It's not as much as you think. Unless you're getting a full ride, and trust me, it's not based on your athletics. It's based on your academics when you get a full ride. Unless you get a full ride, you're splitting scholarships in different ways. So let's get down to that nitty-gritty of it. So let's say you're a baseball player, right? It's baseball season. Baseball season, you look to, where is it at? Baseball. Basketball. All right, let's go softball since we're there. Softball gets 12 scholarships. 12 full scholarships. The average full scholarship is $20,715. What coaches do is they take those 12 scholarships, which at $20,700 probably isn't a full ride at that school, right? So the average softball coach takes those 12 scholarships, cuts it up 19 different ways on average. The highest was 24. The lowest was 13. Takes those 12 scholarships, cuts it up 19 different ways on average. And you're getting, what, $8,000? Something like that. So you have to think about this. Let's catch up on some of these notes real quick. Jen Graham Kuntz says, well put. Nick says, there are so many valuable scholarships at the D3 level that it's impossible not to look at it. Well, Nick, you're right and you're wrong. There are so many valuable scholarships at the D3 level. But the problem is people aren't looking at them because it's D3. And I think that's the problem. And one that we're trying to help change the narrative on. Mardell says, go Tomcats. Must be a Teal guy. Diane Campbell says, we have always told Sam that he would get more money for his brain than his arm. He's playing D3. All of his money is academic. Couldn't have said it better. I was not an academic. Like, I was a very average to below average student. I was lucky that I had an above average work ethic. And I started at Ohio Northern, D3 school in Ada, Ohio, playing baseball, a broadcast major. It wasn't the right fit for me. I was too far from home at 3 hours. And believe me, parents, believe me, student athletes, you're going to get homesick. You're going to get homesick, especially. And I know everybody is the same way I was. You're running for the door, and then you get 3 hours away from home, and you go, now what do I do? And then you get in fight or flight, and some of you are going to stay out there and love it, and some of you are going to come back and go somewhere else. It's okay for both of those, right? We have to find ourselves. That's what college is about, is finding yourself. It's about growing up, spreading your wings. It's about a whole lot of things. Maturing. Being able to make independent, rational decisions. But if you're playing a sport, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to have a whole lot of time on your hands. If you believe that you're going to the next level and you're going to have as much downtime as you do in high school, from a standpoint of playing a sport, going to school, and having that personal life, I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. Coaches aren't there voluntarily necessarily anymore. Coaches are there because they want to make a career out of this. The same way that you're going because you want to create a career for yourself, whether academics or athletics. Coaches are there for the exact same reasons. Only it's a lot tougher for them because a lot of them are graduate assistants. A lot of them are people that are looking to get a job right now. You've got 4 to 5 years to figure yourself out as an athlete. People think because Division III doesn't give scholarships that coaches don't care. Couldn't be further from the truth. I would argue, and I can bring on a slew of Division III athletes that'll tell you that Division III is the same commitment level as Division I. You're just not getting paid. You're doing it because you love the game. You love the sport. You love the competition. You love so much about that. You're not ready to let up. That's okay. But to walk into, as I did, completely blindsided, to walk into an athletic program in college and expect that you just are there for 3 or 4 months out of the year and the other 8 to 9, you're hanging out. No. College is a 12-month-a-year job. Those coaches are counting on you to perform, to stay in shape, to stay eligible, so that you can help them climb the ladder as well. They want you to climb the ladder because the better you do, the better they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how life works. And when you get your job, the better you do, the better your boss looks. That's just how it goes. But so many people are so wrapped up and concentrated on, well, I didn't get a Division I scholarship, so I'm done. I've said it 100 times if I've said it once. Our area is so flooded with talent in athletics, and I'm finding out that the brains go with the brawn around here. We need to start looking at other options. And because we have Division III so close to us. Now we have the Youngstown State. We have Kent State. Right in our back door, we have Akron. There's 3 Division I schools. But we're forgetting about the 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 Division III schools that are right there, less than 2 to 3 hours away from us, that we're just absolutely turning a blind eye to. Don't want to see it. What's crazy to me is the misinformation that goes around, the lack of education. And parents, I'm going to put this on you too. You have to make your sons and daughters make a educated decision about where they go to school or what trade they do. Because the ultimate goal is not going for 2 years here and then moving here and then doubling down your debt. I can't imagine that's what we're thinking. You have to make sure that they make the decision somewhere where they want to be. Number one, at home. Number two, happy with not only the decision they made, the investment they're making, not only with their money, but with their time and other resources. A place where they're safe. All of this has to go into that decision. And a lot of parents out there will put their 2 cents in and will sometimes even sweeten the pot for son or daughter, which is fine. I'm no steward of your finances. But at the end of the day, trust me when I say this, your kid, if they want to play sports, they're going to play. And they might change their mind. Because I'm not going to say that division whatever, college sports is not fun. But that's not the primary reason you're there anymore. And we're starting to see it trickle down to high school. And worse, we're even starting to see it trickle down to the youth sports. And I think the biggest thing that we need to remember as parents, as student athletes, as fans, is that when the game isn't fun anymore, it's a challenge to keep going. Sometimes it's a parent that makes it not fun anymore. Sometimes it's a coach that doesn't make it fun anymore. Sometimes it's just not fun anymore. Whether you're striking out or you go 4 for 4 with 4 home runs, sometimes it's just not fun anymore. Some people aren't challenged enough. Some people are challenged too much. Some people just grow out of playing a sport. They have other things in their life that they want to do. They want to start a business. They want to get their degree. They want to become a doctor, a lawyer, a plumber, whatever that may be. We have to make sure that they're happy. We have to make sure that they feel like they're all in on that decision, right? Westminster grad, right here. My parents begged me to go somewhere else. When I transferred from Ohio Northern to Westminster, my parents begged me to go somewhere else. The most real thing that they said to me, they said, okay, we got you covered at Ohio Northern, but you don't like it there, you're going somewhere else, you get to foot the bill. Puts things in perspective real quick. And as a 19-year-old, you got to figure out some stuff. You got to figure out, do I really want to do this? I'm already $27,000 in debt after 1 year of college. Do I really? And that was, listen, that was covered. My mom was so elated. My dad was so elated that I actually wanted to go to college and continue my education. And I hated school. Hated it. Wasn't for me. Hands-on guy right here. Love being able to learn outside the classroom. But they were so elated that I was going to school that they're like, we got this. But once I wasn't, and then my grades were great. My grades were great in college because it was things that I was interested in. And this isn't about me, but maybe somebody learned something from this story. Your kid decides, or you decide that you're going to transfer from one school to another. You have to make that decision. Your parents were behind you when you're 17 years old going on 18, and you make that decision. Listen, that's a family decision. You make that together. You change your mind, you get out there. It's not the place that you fell in love with. It's not the place that now it's on you, youngster. Your parents are still going to be behind you, but they're going to have some questions, and they might have some demands. And you can't blame them for that. But if your parents are like my parents and they said, that's fine, this one's on you. We had you covered. We made the decision as a family. We budgeted for it. And now it's on you. That's where you look at this. Why we tell you from the time that we were put on this earth for this network, play as many sports as you possibly can. Go out and volunteer. Go out and do as much as you can in your community because there's a scholarship for that. Just like the old days when they said there's an app for that, there are scholarships, there are grants, there are all kinds of things out there that will help you. And trust you me, when you make that jump, you're a D1 athlete, and let's say it doesn't work out. What sucks about scholarships, folks, is that you got no control over them. No control over athletic scholarships. If you don't perform, they change a coach, they run out of funds, new kid on the block, blue chipper, you have zero control over athletic scholarships. Zero. And people will argue, and I get it. Well, if you do perform, you do get scholarships. We saw Jackie Grisdale just get offered a scholarship. Awesome. Love it. Proud of Jackie. Proud of everybody that gets a scholarship at every single level. But what worries me is D1 scholarships, D2 scholarships. Anytime you get an athletic scholarship, it can be rescinded. You get injured. It's a way of life. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, folks. And I think that most student athletes, most parents, most families are so excited to get that offer that they don't question what if enough. What if my son or daughter gets injured and they can't play again? Can they still utilize this scholarship to get to finish out their degree? These are questions you can ask. And you may like the answers, you may not, but you have to ask the question. We're in such a time and age that we take things for granted. Information superhighway, right? That's why they call it the internet. You can get information at the drop of a hat faster than you ever could at any portion of our history. But most of us will just search until we find what we want to hear and not what we are actually looking for. And there lies the problem. We hear what we want to, we see what we want to, and unfortunately, when it comes to these scholarships, when it comes to these Division I just blessings, and listen, you are blessed beyond measure when you get those opportunities, because some of you will finish out and be great stewards of your community. There's a billion different things you can be, and you may not be a professional athlete, but you might. I'm never trying to poo-poo on anybody's dreams here. I just want you to be informed. 99.9% of us are not going to be professional athletes, and that's okay. But you got to have the education to back it up. And everybody around here needs to take a closer look at some of the schools that it may not be glamorous. You may not be able to hang that scholarship paper. Everybody gets the National Letter of Intent Day now. Go after it. Give a smaller school a look. And some of you might not like the smaller classes. Some of you might love it. Big fan, right here. But the reality for me was I learn best when I make mistakes. I got hyped up as the first person that looked at me and sent me a letter and said, hey, we're interested in you. I was in love. Got several letters after that. No D1, and that's fine. At 5'5", I'm not probably D1 caliber, but I had the work ethic. And I'm a guy that if I make a mistake, that's fine, but I'm going to find my way. I'm going to cut through the mud and the muck and all the weeds. And I feel like sometimes when you make a mistake, you're in a jungle, right? You're just trying to find your path back to where you need, back to your home, back to, your headquarters. And we get so frustrated. I talked to a gentleman last night. His kid went D1, got injured, came back, has not been able to land anywhere else. And what's frustrating is he had all the skill and all the talent in the world, but he went for a sport. He went for a sport alone. And when he got injured, the scholarship, which was not fantastic, but it was something, it went away. And I think as a parent, and I'm a few ice cream seasons away from having to deal with this, so the parents that have to deal with it, I empathize with you. It's a terrifying feeling knowing that if something happens, that nobody's going to have your kids back. And coaches are and I don't want any college coaches calling me and reaming me out, but let's face this. When you're a college coach, you are a salesperson. You're trying to sell that family, that student athlete to come to your college and put their faith in you. College is a business. If that college coach is not cutting the mustard, he or she will not be around very long. So then what is it? It trickles down to your son or daughter. What does that mean for them? It's troublesome, folks. It's a very real scenario, and it's very challenging. And it's walking a tightrope with no net. The one word of advice that I can give is that the more academic scholarships, the more academic grants and money that you can bring in, that's when it's on you. I promise this. Your professors, the doctors at the next level are not going to be out to get you. They're out to teach you. You have a lot better chance keeping that academic inning, doubling, making more money academically as you get better and you strengthen yourself mentally and in the classroom than you do athletically. That is a proven stat. Now, there's obviously way more students than there are athletes at the next level. But I think that's changing too. Especially with these smaller schools. These smaller schools, these D3 schools, these JUCO schools are starting to recruit so many athletes. I mean, let's look at that stat real quick. 106,000, almost 107,000 male athletes in Division III. 76,400 female athletes in Division III. They have the most schools. They have the most male athletes. They have the most female athletes, but nobody says anything. Why are these kids going to these schools to play sports if they're not getting paid to do it? They are. They might not be labeled athletic scholarships. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to read between the lines. There's 107 D3 athletes out there just for the guys, and another 70,000 plus for the girls. It's bananas. And you think almost 200,000 people are going to go there and not have any kind of financial aid passed their way? You're crazy. And I'm not sitting here telling you that, okay, you all need to go to Division III because what I'm telling you is just because your kid's a Division I or not a Division I rather, that's not the end of the rope. That's not the end of the road. The show can go on. But we put so much emphasis on if you don't bring home, little Johnny, a Division I scholarship, you're not going to play ball ever again. The odds of you getting drafted from a Division II or Division III school. You want to know the reality? If you're good enough, they will find you. If you're good enough, they will find you. I remember when I was in college, a guy that played at Westminster got drafted by the Brewers in the late rounds of the MLB draft. If you have the tools, if you have what they're looking for, they will find you. Look at the big schools. Not every athlete that goes D1 gets drafted. In fact, the odds are against them as well. And between you and me, because nobody watches this show, right? I like my opportunities and I like my options a lot better if I'm playing 4 years at a smaller school than if I'm waiting my time at a bigger school, especially in the COVID era. And I might get a couple of practice swings here and there, and I might get a couple of, your senior year on senior day. And I'm not talking about necessarily the YSUs or the Ohio. I'm talking about it. I mean, how many were there? How many Division I schools? Look at that. That's 357. 357 Division I schools, right? And we're putting all our eggs in that basket. The crazy thing about even going up to Division III, Division II, and especially Division I, is that when you put all your eggs in that basket, when you say, I'm doing this, there's no guarantee you're getting playing time at D3. There's no guarantee you're getting playing time at D2, and there sure as hell isn't a guarantee you're playing at D1. That's an option that families have to talk about. The comfortability has to come through. You have to be good enough that they find you. That's what it comes down to. Your odds are not better of getting drafted because you're receiving $2,000 as a scholarship. They're not drafting you. They're not trying to pin you on what your history is. If that was the case, they'd be at a lot more T-ball games. Right? They'd be at your Little League games, scouts. They're looking at how raw you are. They're looking at a lot of things. They're looking at, can we put this kid in a lineup every day? Whether it be in baseball, softball, whatever it may be, whatever sport it may be. We are so obsessed and so concentrated on what summer ball team my kid plays for. Just play. Just play. If you're a D1 athlete, they'll find you. Sometimes, believe it or not, and most people won't believe me, it's luck. Sometimes it's just luck. Sometimes they're not there scouting you or looking to recruit you, and they just find you. Sometimes it's right guy, right time, right place. Or right girl, right time, right place. That's how it goes. I mean, that's it. Sometimes in life, you just got to get a little lucky to get where you want to go. And that's the end of the story. People don't believe me. People don't understand. People don't ask scouts. Watch a movie, for crying out loud. Trouble with the Curve. Perfect example. Sometimes you just need to show that work ethic. Sometimes that's what it all comes down to. That's what it's about. And if you're meant to go, you'll go. I got to be honest, and I promise you I'm not crazy. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to start out and get a couple years of playing experience and figuring yourself out at a college level at a smaller school, and then you move into a bigger opportunity. Will that opportunity still be there? Maybe, maybe not. Some coaches might get offended. Well, you didn't take me up on my first offer. What am I going to bring you in? The transfer portal, ladies and gentlemen, is real, and it is, oh mama, is it? It's peppered with talent. I'm telling you, don't sleep on these smaller schools. Get your experience. Figure yourself out. For some of you, for most of you, it's the first time you've ever been away in your life. For some of you, it's the first time you're ever going to do laundry. For some of you, it's the first time you're ever going to have to figure out a budget, whether that be for books or food or rent or whatever it may be, tuition. For some of you, it's the first time you're ever going to have to multitask. And believe me, when you go to these schools, when you go to a Division I school, and anytime there's a value associated with you, you are no longer a name, you are a number. It is a business. And if you're not living up to that number that they've tagged you with, they'll find another number. That's business. That's the dark side of college athletics that they're not going to tell you about in your living room. Well, you guys are celebrating and you're getting your offers and things of that nature. And I'm not. Most people are going to say, well, that's only because DJ, you never got the offer. You never had those offers. No, I listen, I'm past that. I'm trying to help you now. I've seen it happen to too many of my friends. I've seen it happen to too many of the people that I cheer for the most. Parents don't believe this. They're going to walk into your living room, or you're going to walk into their beautiful facilities that have names on the side of the buildings with people with more money than we'll ever know. And they're going to tell you all the right things. And they're going to tell you, oh, we can give you this much, but let me tell you, your son or your daughter means the world to me, and we're going to take care of them. They know they're lowballing you. Their job is the same as yours when you're going to the grocery store. It's get as much as you can for as little as you can get it. That's business. Make the margins a little bit steeper, right? Got a little money for the back end. Maybe we can get a couple blue chippers to come in this way. The transfer portal. The transfer portal is what is keeping your kids at this much money instead of this much money. Because most coaches And I've heard this on podcasts. I've heard this in conversations with coaches. Most coaches don't want to babysit your kid for a year and see if they figure it out. Most coaches want someone that's already figured it out, that's in the transfer portal, that they're going to bring in and then give a little extra money to, because they don't have to babysit them all the time. That's just the reality of it. They want a 19-year-old over an 18-year-old. They want a 20-year-old over a 19-year-old. It's a numbers game now. It always has been. There's less coaches out there that are trying to be dad and trying to be CEO of whatever that university's program they're representing is. It is a business. And until you start seeing it as a business and not a just decision that you're going to hang a banner at a graduation party, it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Sorrell says, geez, I am so glad I am old and don't have to worry about the heavy burden on my shoulders. Yeah. And just like everything else, it's not going to get any easier. That burden's not going to get any lighter, Sorrell, no matter how long you go. I thought it was tough when I went through school. Some of these kids, some of these stories that I'm hearing nowadays, I'm happy to see that the majority of these kids have options. It saddens me that the majority of these kids don't go after options. It's not that they don't want to play sports at the next level. It's that they feel like they let somebody down by not getting a Division I scholarship. What bothers me more oftentimes than not, and you can tell me if I'm absolutely bananas, the term PWO, preferred walk-on, okay? I don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with a student athlete going to a school and declaring themselves a PWO, a preferred walk-on. Most people do. This is the problem with where we're at, is most people are going to go, he's just a PWO. He'll be out with the laundry the first couple weeks. I give a lot of credit to these kids that go to a bigger school and they are a PWO. They're betting on themselves. And you got to give them a lot more credit than we do. Because nowadays in the business world, where small business makes up 90+% of businesses in the United States of America, those small business owners bet on themselves, right? I'm one of them. Are there times where you doubt yourself? Absolutely. Are there times where you say that you're not good enough, you don't belong here? 100%. But I admire the preferred walk-ons because they bet on themselves. I admire the kids that walk in to a D1 and say, listen, I know I'm only getting a couple $100, but I can still declare that as a scholarship. I check that off my bucket list, but I'm not stopping until I got a full ride here. And you see it all the time, those great stories where they're in the study room, or they're looking at tape, they're looking at film, and they have a great story about coaches announcing that they got a full ride scholarship. That's the stuff. That's why I love, and this contradicts pretty much the last 50 minutes. I love that when you bet on you. But what bothers me is when we see these scholarships as a destination as opposed to part of the journey. People need to wake up. Parents need to wake up and make their kids understand, their student athletes understand that when you get that scholarship, it's only just begun. It's only just begun. Now the stakes are higher than ever. Now it is a bigger burden for you. Now you have to put that chip right back on your shoulder. There's no time to celebrate. have your graduation parties, have whatever that may be, celebrate your high school career, but understand full blown and full and wholeheartedly, we've only just begun. It's true. Now you've got dollar signs. You've got dollar signs locked up on you. Coaches know what you're making. Maybe your teammates don't know what you're making. Your parents know what you're making from that standpoint. But that university knows, that program knows. And if you're not living up to that scholarship, they've got no problem pulling it out like a rug from right underneath you. Sigley says, life lesson many of us have bet on ourselves in life. Without a doubt. And I think that starts at a very young age. But if you're like me, sometimes you bet on yourself and you lose. And sometimes you win. And sometimes you learn. And the reality is, when you bet on yourself, it's always better to have a bet with yourself, right? Or someone you love, because there's that little bit of wiggle room that you have in that bet. Not necessarily to get out of it, but you're not going to fall off the wagon and not be able to get back on. I promise you this, there's not many coaches out there. They're out there. They're out there. There's not many of them that'll give you a second chance, especially in this day and age. Because the second you screw up, or if you screw up for the last time, and they've had enough, and that risk is not worth the reward, or the reward, rather, is not worth the risk. Next, take a number. Take a number. It's the Kurt Warner. When your number is called, you better know the playbook. Because if you sit out, they're going to ask for that playbook right back. Scholarships. Make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you do it. Football at the FBS level, they're giving away 85 scholarships. Golf, 4.5 scholarships. Baseball, 11.7 scholarships. Basketball, 13 scholarships. FCS football, 63 scholarships. Gymnastics gets more than golf at 6 1/3. Ice hockey gets 18. Lacrosse gets 12.5. Skiing gets more than golf at 6.3. Soccer gets 10. Swimming and diving gets 10. Tennis gets 4.5. Track, cross country, 12.5. Wrestling, 9.9. Did you hear your sport? I heard mine. I know that there's about 30. When we won the PAC championship at Westminster, there was 40 guys on our roster. If we were a Division I school, out of those 40 guys, less than 12 of them would have scholarships. Broken up, right? If it was just one per. But like I said, they can take a scholarship and break it in thirds. They can take a scholarship and break it in half. They can give you a full scholarship. That doesn't mean that it's a full ride. Just full scholarship. Let's get to the Joe Dickey Electric What's Your Spark, presented by our friends over at Joe Dickey Electric. A moving moment the other night for me was doing the Pie Valley and East Palestine game, and witnessed. It was a rough day for my boys from EP. It was a 18 or 19-3 victory for Pie Valley. They now take on South Range this afternoon, which will be on YSN. But between all the hubbub and all the scoring, what was really cool was I had a nice young man come over during the game, actually right before the game, and said that he was a huge fan of the show, watched us every day. And that meant the world to me because we don't even have Pie Valley yet. And I thought it was a great, great thing because it just shows from our standpoint who we're reaching. Aren't necessarily people that are just watching for their school, just watching for their athletes. They're watching for other schools, and they're watching because it's local. And you go to a high school baseball game and you hear some of these names, and now you're familiar with them. Now they're household names. And they weren't before because there was never anything like what we do. And I'm not sitting here patting myself on the back, and I'm not even saying mission accomplished because it's not. It's just a great opportunity and great reminder of why we do what we do. The wins and the losses, and having them put on YSN in one form or fashion, whether it be on a live broadcast or a live stream or on one of our shows or on our website, ysnlive.com, and in the form of a recap or an interview. Our job and our goals are starting to come to fruition 5 years later, making your son or daughter household name across Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. Hearing Ohio people talk about Mohawk and their athletes does nothing but warm my heart. Having fans and people from other schools root for other schools' players because they saw them on a player profile and they never knew them before. And maybe there was something that in that interview that got their attention and got them excited about that young man or young woman. That's what I love about this. That's a positive spark in every form and fashion of the word. And that's what gets me amped up. That's what every day, like today, 4:30 a.m., I'm up and about. I'm ready to go. Because we had a meeting at noon and just continue to move the chains. Giving your son or daughter better opportunities, better experiences, and a platform that maybe, just maybe, changes their life for the positive in one piece of it. Whether it's sports, whether it's getting an interview and they've never been interviewed, that's what it's all about. We're not a 30-second highlight show. That's not what we do. We're not here for the short part of the story. X's and O's are great, but we care more about the Jimmies and Joes. That's the story. That's what I love. And for that young man at Pymatuning Valley to be able to get excited about some of the kids from East Palestine that he was seeing that particular day, know them by name, and get excited. His team defeated East Palestine. But he was still excited about seeing some of those kids that he's seen on YSN this season. That, ladies and gentlemen, those are my favorite stories. There very rarely is a story that I'm going to turn away. But those are my favorite. Those go up here, and that keeps the motor running for guys like me, guys like Anthony, guys like Ty, the entire roster at YSN. Chris Sigler loves that. So I'm asking you, with this last 30 seconds of the show, if you're out there and you see our guys at a ball game and you love what we do, maybe even if you just like what we do, go up, introduce yourself, and tell them why you love YSN. Thank them for taking time out of their schedule and promoting your kid. We never hear it whenever we said something wrong or we mispronounced a name, or we never hear the good stuff. We hear all of the bad stuff. I'm here for it, right? I'm here for it. But make sure you go up. If you're out of the game tonight, you're out of the game this week, next week, whenever, throughout the year. You don't have to go tell them that you thank you or anything like that. Go up and just tell them you like YSN. And if you feel so obliged to thank them, do so. These guys aren't getting rich. We're not getting rich. We're doing it right now. We're doing it all to build the process, just like you are. We love you. We love you so much, you have no idea. If we didn't, we wouldn't be doing this. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope I didn't bore you too much with the scholarship talk. Hope you learned something about it. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on social media. We'd love to address your questions on a public stage or on a private stage. If it's just a message back and forth, let us know. We appreciate you. Love you. Get out and see some ball games tonight. If they're still going, Mother Nature looks like she's going to hold off. We'll see you tomorrow, 3 to 4, right here on the network. Peace. YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of Your Sports